Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Get Your Money Right podcast, brought to you by Forward Motion. My name's Amanda Miller.
I'm Sarah. I am on the board of directors of Forward Motion.
And I am the executive director of Forward Motion. At Forward Motion, our mission is creating generational prosperity, one family at a time. And on this podcast, we talk about all things moving forward. We talk about getting your money right, and that encompasses a lot of different topics. Today, we're going to focus on the topic of budgeting. So it's, I know budgeting is just a super exciting word, right? Everybody gets really excited when they think about budgeting. But we're going to make it fun because there's a lot that can be gained from having a solid budget and being able to really well manage your money. So I wanted to start out today with just a little kind of icebreaker and you know, that question of what thoughts come to mind when you think about, or when people think about budgeting. What comes to mind for you, Sarah?
I feel a lot of things come to mind, but the first for me is always stress. It's like stressful, right? I think after stress and maybe a little bit of anxiety, then it's maybe like a limitation. Like it feels like, oh, budgeting is just me limiting myself to all the fun things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, that's smart. And then I think about like investing and I think, you know, as you're younger, first kind of starting this off, it's very stressful and it can be very, you know, a situation that can cause a lot of anxiety. And you kind of move into that more of like planning mode and have that less anxiety about it once you kind of start facing it more and learn more about it.
Yeah. It's funny, you kind of, you went through kind of a full gamut of feelings, right? It's like stress and anxiety and then scarcity, right? We talked about scarcity last week. So that's really interesting that you brought that up. It's like, it feels like I'm taking away from myself.
Right.
Right. It's like, well,
because it's that initial, like right in the moment, right?
Yeah.
You're not thinking about the long term.
Yeah.
Of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I work hard every day. I deserve to be able to do whatever I want, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny because when you're a kid, I saw a meme and it was like, what is the dumbest thing you ever did or you ever thought as a kid? And it was like that I wanted to grow up. That was like the punchline of the meme. And it's like, when you're a kid, all you want to do is grow up because I'm going to be able to do anything I want, right? I don't have the limitations set on me by my parents or by my teachers, or
I'm going to have my own money.
I'm going to have my own money.
It's just that easy to acquire.
Yeah. I just do whatever I want. I'm just going to go everywhere. I'm going to buy everything. Yeah. And then, you know, when you're trying to set yourself up as an adult and start to budget, it's like, yeah, but what about doing whatever I want?
Yeah. It's like, what about that thing I want to do? But you don't realize, I mean, maybe even you do, but in like after fact, you don't realize how that's going to affect you afterwards. Like even at the end of the month. Yeah. Oh, I really should have probably budgeted better. Now maybe there's something better that I wanted that I can't get. Yeah. I have a bill to pay and I can't pay. And
yes. And you know, it's funny because it's all about instant versus delayed gratification.
Yep, definitely.
Right? Because
let that one alone.
It's like you're in the line, right? Or where you're at the store, or you're sitting in your car and you see someone with something and you're like, oh, that's a cool little doohickey gadget thing. I could use that. The Home Shopping Network is like always comes to mind when I think of budgeting and impulse buying, because you see this like, oh, but wait, there's more. And it's like, we've got this cookery thing. And then it comes with this flippy spatula, and it comes with all this, you're like, all of that for just a low price of just $29.95 a month for 6 months. Like I can deal with $30 a month, right?
Start rationalizing. You need it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Like when was the last time you were in the kitchen, needed a flippy doodle? Like, I finally have the flippy doodle.
I should have a great example of that. Sorry, not to sidetrack.
No. Go ahead.
No, that's not. It was like advertising this like pickle. Okay, so it goes around the top of your pickle jar.
Definitely sounds like something you need, right?
It goes around the top of your pickle jar, and then it has a little like mini like fork that sits in the holder. So you can just get your pickles out of the jar. And I was like, I need that.
Because I'm struggling.
I'm always
Struggling to get the pickles out of the jar. It's like, see, it's the same thing. It's like, you think about, I always think about when they would have this newfangled mop on the, infomercial or Home Shopping Network or whatever. And they show this lady or this guy and they're just struggling. Like they have a regular mop and they're just, they put it in the bucket and water splashes everywhere and they're just trying to, and it's just like, and you're like, and then they do the new mop and you just squeeze it and it's just like, huh.
Why am I struggling?
Why am I struggling with all of these mop issues when I could just have this $50 mop? And it's so funny because, getting back to delayed versus instant gratification of, okay, that thing's cool, but what's my real reason or what's my real thing that I'm going after, right? Is it a trip? Is it, more investing? Is it paying off your car early? Is it, whatever? Is it making an extra payment on your house once a year? Because I would have to look up the exact numbers, but I believe on an average home note, right? Your mortgage, paying one extra payment to principal will take off 7 years of your loan.
Sure will. There's a few ways that you can do that.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like, wow, that's a big deal, right? And that's a lot of equity built.
Interest.
A lot of interest saved, a lot of equity built, and realized equity basically, right? Because the more you own of your home, the better you're off you are when you sell it. And so it's just, kind of getting away from that scarcity feeling. Most people don't budget because it feels limiting. It's like, there's this, it's a limiting, like, well, now I'm not going to be able to do or have what I want. There's also that realization of like, well, when I sit down with people in individualized coaching and we're going over, the first step is always like, we need to really look at spending and income and look at creating a strong budget. And, I always say budgeting's the easy part. It's sticking to the budget that's the real flex. And people, they just get, white as a sheet. And I'm like, what are you feeling? What's going on? And it's, well, you're asking me to go through 60 days of bank statements. I'm terrified to really see what I'm spending.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that fear of that true realization of what's really going on. So we're going to dig into a lot of that stuff today as we talk. Now I want to share a couple of some statistics with you all, and hopefully we find these to be eye-opening and inspiring as well, because little rainbow, right? LeVar Burton, right? The more you know. So according to Schwab's 2019 Modern Wealth Index, which they do Schwab does this report of how people use, save, and plan for financially every few years. And in 2019, they found that only about 25% of Americans have some sort of written financial plan. 25%. So that means 75% of Americans are just winging it, hoping, right? And I always say hope is not a strategy, right? So to kind of put that piece into deeper perspective, 32% of US adults have no savings whatsoever, $0 in savings, right? I was in this category at one time. For a long time, I was in this category. And it's not a fun reality.
Right.
It's not a fun reality to be in. Any small thing. I can remember once when I was in this category, I was on my way to work and I made decent money. I was a restaurant manager. I was on my way to work and my radiator blew. And I didn't get paid. I think I had gotten paid like a week before. So I didn't get paid for another week and I had just no money, right? It was just like everything went to bills and then whatever else in life, in the world. My radiator blew and it about ruined my life. And it's like looking back, like, hindsight's 2020, right? Looking back, it was like a $300 or $400 expense. And today, like, okay, that would be a nuisance. It's not necessarily like something I want to do, but it's not going to ruin my life. It's not going to put me in a position where it's like, okay, how am I going to get to work? How am I going to get my son to daycare? How am I, all of these things. And it's like, wow, that was a $300-$400 expense, and it's because I didn't have any financial plan whatsoever. I had no savings. I had none of that. 26% of US adults have less than $1,000 in savings. So to put that into perspective, what that means here is 58% of American adults have less than $1,000 in savings.
When you talk about savings, do you mean like direct access savings, or do you mean like total like investment savings, like 401k included, or stocks and all that?
Emergency fund.
Okay.
Talking about like direct access, liquid savings, emergency fund.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if you have less than $1,000 in savings, the reality is that most likely your 401k isn't stacked either.
Okay.
Right. Now add in another 15% have less than 5,000 in savings. So again, putting that all into deep perspective, 73% of adults in the United States have less than $5,000 in savings. For most people, that's not anywhere close to 3 months of expenses. Right. And so that's where some of, the statistics that we've seen, where a gigantic percentage, like over 40% of Americans couldn't, like, are just living paycheck to paycheck, one, and would be all but ruined with an emergency or an out of pocket expense. So that is where budgeting really, really comes in. And so I have like a 3-tier kind of thought process around getting your finances in order and getting your money right. And first, it starts with mindset. Right. We talked a little bit about that in episodes 1 and 2, and that's really the beginning. So the mindset that you have around personal finance is so important to your success. I always like to say, have you ever, heard of a predestination paradox, right? So if you believe you can, if you really, really believe you can, you're right. And the opposite goes to if you believe you can't, if you're putting obstacles out in front of yourself. So mindset is first, and then planning, right? And that's where we are right now. We're talking about planning. So be stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your methods. That's a quote I've always loved, right? Because the best laid plans will not go as planned.
Right.
There was a story that I was listening to on a different podcast that they were talking about the operation to go and extract Osama bin Laden. And, if you can imagine, this was a very well laid out plan, right? Been months in planning, a lot of intelligence, all of these things. And there were 2 helicopters, and I'm going to paraphrase it all, but there were 2 helicopters as part of the mission that these military people were coming in to get this man. And first off, one of the helicopters engine explodes, and then they have to set it on fire. Like first line of business, we're taking off, everything, helicopter explodes. Okay, now we have to set it on fire because there's all of this important intelligence and stuff in there. And it's like, we're in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
So this months and months and months of planning, literally within the first, couple of hours, it's like, okay, we'll set that plan on fire. Right. And so that's a visualization of be stubborn about your goals. Like the goal hasn't changed, but sometimes the methods have to be a little bit flexible, and things are going to get in your way. You will fail. You will have setbacks. It will happen. So remember that the goal is there, and sometimes the methods do have to adjust. And if you get a little bit off track, consult. Like if you're hiking, right, I remember when we went to the Grand Canyon. That was we went down in the Grand Canyon. It was a long hike. Very hard to get lost on that one because it's kind of like go here and then go straight. But if you're on a long hike, right? When we were in Yosemite, right? Okay, I'm not exactly sure where I am. Okay, perfect. I have this map. Let's look. Okay, there's Half Dome. Okay, this is where we are. We need to go this direction, right? Mm-hmm. So you always consult your map. And that's what your budget is. Your budget is your map that you're going to consult. And then so mindset is first, then planning, and the last one is execution. There's no point in sugarcoating it. Like I said, creating a budget is actually really easy. It's kind of a fun exercise if you're like me. It can be a fun exercise to kind of go through and really look at, okay, what am I spending? What do I have coming in? What can I adjust, right? And really put a solid plan together. But the real success comes in the execution, comes in sticking to it.
Yes.
It comes in delaying your gratification when you see that cool flippy doodle, right, that you want, and you're like, okay, but flippy doodle's not in my budget right now, and these things are for this reason, for this outcome, right? So that is so mindset, planning, execution is what I want us to be kind of thinking about, everyone out there in podcast world, as you're starting to go through this process. So let's go ahead and kind of dig into how budgeting works. And I'm going to try and use super descriptive words because some of us are listening without the video. And so we'll kind of talk a little bit about budgeting. And the first part of budgeting is calculating your income. For some, this is super easy, right? I work a regular job. I get a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks, twice a month, whatever it might be. And I don't have anything else that comes in outside of that. So, when you're calculating your expenses, are there any hiccups that you might be able to think of or anything that comes to mind that might be a little like, okay, that can sometimes be tricky to figure?
Well, I feel like first, when you start looking at it, you find a lot of things that you're like, oh, what is that? Like, I do that a lot. Or what category would that fit in? I feel like an easy one is like going out to eat.
Well, no, yeah. Expenses are fun. But I want to talk just real quickly first about calculating like what's coming in.
Oh,
right. Your income. Yep.
How can that be tricky? Maybe if you're somebody that owns your own business and, things fluctuate.
Yeah.
For me, I'm probably one of those really easy, like I have a salary.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly how much I'm going to get every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So it's really easy for me. And I don't have any other businesses or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right now that's like creating me any kind of income.
Yeah.
Other than like, my small little investment in Robinhood and my 401k, which I don't really.
You don't calculate. I mean, that's not expendable income that you're using.
It's not touching it. I'm not using it. So I would say if you're somebody that like owned your own business, maybe your hours fluctuate, maybe you're a server. Some weeks are really great depending on the holiday season, whatever.
Yeah.
The night, the shift. Yeah. So stuff like that.
That's a really good point. If you're a business owner and you don't pay yourself a regular salary, right? Like if you're a business owner and you say take a percentage of profits on a quarterly, monthly, or biweekly basis, it can be challenging to really set in how much do I make, right? And so my recommendation there, I have a couple of different recommendations that I make in those scenarios. So one recommendation would be take your income, look at your bank statements, look at what you're depositing on a quarterly basis, right? So look at your income for the last 3 months and create your budget based on those numbers, and then readjust every quarter. So that's one thing that I suggest. The next piece that I suggest in those scenarios is look at it. If you've been in business for a good amount of time and you're working for yourself, one thing is, if you can figure to pay yourself a regular salary, do that. That's on a lot of different levels. That's really the best way to do it. Make sure that you're paying yourself regularly. But if not, then look at a 6-month basis. Go 6 months back, right? Especially if you have seasonality in your business, go 6 months back and create your budget based on that chunk of time. Another thing that comes to mind outside of business owners is some folks, you may have, like, if you are a server, right? And say it's a bit slow. It's been the slower season in Arizona. A lot of people, we have the winter visitors or snowbirds that frequent a lot of restaurants during the nicer months of the year, and then in the summertime it slows down quite a bit. That's something people get out of here. That's something that I remember as a server, and so you might have 2 different budgets. And in those cases, you can also look at a minimally viable budget. So you look at, what is the lowest amount of money that I have coming in consistently, and create your budget based on that. And that also comes into just living within or beneath your means, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, tip from grandma, right? Live below your means. But some folks also during those times, they might take on odd jobs. Sure. They might take on gigs, right? Working for something like TaskRabbit or Uber or something like that. And it's not the full-time gig. It's just, I do this on the nights or on the weekends and things like that. And again, I always recommend looking at that stuff on, if you can, a quarterly basis. And that way you have a really great week, and say you have a really great week and you make $1,000 in your side gig, but typically you make $300 in your side
budget off of that.
Exactly. Because next thing you know, you're going around like Rick James, and you're not rich. And then some other things to keep in mind are like child support. If you have child support coming in as an income, or like spousal maintenance, if that's the type of lifestyle that you've lived, and you had a agreement that your spousal maintenance would be kept up, then that can be other income as well. But so to calculate your income, if you have a regular job, look at what you have coming in on a monthly basis based on your paychecks. Another piece is, if you're in sales, or if you work on a commission basis, sure. It can be challenging to determine exactly how much that you're going to make. And in that case, again, look at that minimally viable budget. What's the least that I'm going to bring in, and live based on that. And then everything else can actually be icing on top of the cake, sure. Which is a really great way to be, because then, one of the main reasons to budget is to be able to invest, right? Budget to invest, save to invest. And once you get there, now you have this extra money coming in that you can have to work for you, and save up for your future. Anything else that comes to mind for expenses?
You hit a lot of really good ones. Well, for this, you were talking about the income.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Not expenses, income. That's right.
So I'm trying to think of, you hit odd jobs, your regular income. Mm-hmm. Talk about like tips and wages, bonuses.
Yep.
I can't really think of anything else.
Yeah. I think, if there's some other type of income that you have that's an irregular income, then, just know that that's not a part of your budget that should be relied upon. If it can be helped, have that be icing on top of the cake, have that be addition to savings, have that be addition to investment, have that be something that is supplementing and not relied upon. So let's see. Oh man, expenses. Expenses. This is, so we talked about what's coming in. Now, expense is all about what's going out. And this is often the tough place. There's a lot going around of like, oh, well, if you just didn't go to Starbucks, you'd be rich, or you'd be, in a much better place. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're spending $8 a day on a coffee,
then that's probably an issue.
That's probably an issue. It's like $240 a month.
For a couple, every other week, not going to be
it shouldn't be your make or break.
Right. If
it is your make or break, then absolutely look into other ways to fulfill your coffee needs. But, expenses, we have to first start with like non-negotiables: food, water, lights, shelter. Those things are non-negotiable. Those are your regular expenses, right? Transportation, your gas, your bus card, or, whatever you might need in order to get to and from. But, and so when you look at your income, you take out your expenses, and what you have left over is there for savings or investment. Now, I like to talk about your budget as your personal P&L. So businesses live and die by their financial statements. A budget is something that any successful business puts together. They share, if they're a publicly traded business, they share that out with Wall Street. It's on SEC reports. If you're a private business, then you hopefully ideally put your budget together. That's shared with your senior management, which is then adhered to by the rest of your staff. And in any budget, there is always excess. There should always be, no successful business is budgeting down to the penny, spend wise. There have to be coffers. There have to be leftover money. You cannot budget down to every single cent and dollar and expect that nothing is going to go wrong. Nothing is going to happen. We just saw that is absolutely not a thing with COVID, right? COVID happened, and a lot of businesses did not make it.
Sure.
Because they didn't have the cash capital to sustain if their doors had to be closed for a week. Some businesses couldn't handle having their doors closed for a week because the income that was coming in, okay, if that's not coming in, then our P&L is just not going to line up. We're not going to be able to keep the lights on, pay the rent. And so when we think of our expenses, that's where we have to live below our means. Your expenses cannot go up to the penny. I will never forget sitting in my bed. I was probably 22-ish, somewhere around there. Maybe younger, maybe like 19, 20. And I'm sitting in my bed, and I have a notepad, and I'm calculating my budget, and I'm writing down everything I have coming in because I wanted to get a new place or something. And I'm calculating everything that I have coming in, and I literally went down to having like $12 a month, and I was like, perfect, I can afford this place. Like looking back, it's like, Amanda, what were you thinking?
Yeah,
that was really dumb.
I was part of that decision. It's like together we made $8 left. Yeah, we're great. We need this 2-bedroom apartment away from our parents.
We can do it.
Yes.
Right. And at the end of the day, next thing you know, it's like any small thing that happened was just an explosion.
And that was kind of part of one of my questions was, how do you what is budgeting every day look like for you? Because I mean, and maybe it is literally having a figure of, this is the amount of money that you can do whatever you want with this much, and having that like written, this month, have it written down in your phone somewhere. And every time you think about buying something, going and deducting that. But it's not like we all just carry around this figure, or have this figure in our head every time you're making a purchase. We should.
Yeah.
But like, what are your methods for that? When you're trying to
stay within
your,
Yeah. So when you put your budget together, give yourself an allowance. Allowance isn't just for kids, right? So, one of the things that I like to think about is something like, when you give yourself an allowance, you're thinking of things like date night with your spouse, that Starbucks that I want to get every now and again, the flippy doodle that you want. I mean, goodness, it's in your allowance, right? So allowances aren't just for kids. Give yourself an allowance, whether it's $20 a week, $50 a week, $10 a week. Make sure, like, that's another piece about budgeting down to the penny also, that you want to be careful about, like, because what's left over is going to be savings and investment. And so you can't have all of your expenses without you, because that's where that scarcity and that, like, I don't want to stick to a budget because now I can't treat myself.
Right. I don't have any fun.
I don't have any fun. Right. Now, so giving yourself an allowance is something that is really smart, and it's really, really helpful. And, that also, it reduces and relieves that stress, that fear, that anxiety around the idea of limiting yourself. Because now I'm not limiting myself. I'm just not Rick James, I'm just not out there just making it rain at Walmart or Target or Ulta or wherever it is that your vice is, right? Victoria's Secret, or I don't know. These are some of the places that I guess
for me, it just off the top of my head, you say like, oh, the Starbucks isn't a big deal if you're not doing it every day. For me, it's like the work cafeteria. Like, we have good food at work.
Yep.
But I shouldn't be eating at work every day.
You don't have to buy it every day.
Meals at work every day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about $14 every day. And if you calculate that out.
If you're working 5 days a week and you calculate that out,
that's a lot of money.
It does. It adds up.
So
yeah, that's very.
So those sneaky expenses that really can come out of. It's like, if it's consistent enough that it's making an impact.
Yep.
Then you need to rethink your process.
Yeah, because that's what it is. It's the one Starbucks once a month. That's not going to make or break you.
Right. I like my own coffee. I don't really go to Starbucks.
Yeah, it's not much. Exactly. Like,
usually it's because someone's at work is like, do you want to go to Starbucks? And I'm like, sure. Right, sure.
Why not? Yeah.
Be in my handbook. Starbucks. I need that.
That espresso. No, yeah, very true. But like, I love what you just said. If it's consistent enough that it's making a big enough impact, then it is a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So giving yourself an allowance is,
if it's something you're not willing to adjust, like if you just have to have that Starbucks every day, you don't make coffee at home, you never have, not interested in it, then that needs to be a part of your budget. And then, sometimes just making sure it's built into your budget will make you realize how much you're spending on it.
Yes. And so for me, one of those things is, I love nice restaurants.
Me too, because of you. Thanks a lot.
I do. I love nice restaurants. I love trying new, nice restaurants. And I'm talking like in my grown-up or adult years, I like a nice, I'm not even going to say the plate cost. I like a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
But I can't go, I can, but I can't.
Right.
I can't go to a nice restaurant every week. Every single date night doesn't have to be at,
Yeah.
At the Hyatt or at, Quiescence or,
Right.
places like that. They're wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but Riscondi's can't be the place that I go every week. It's not sustainable.
Correct.
And when you do that, like, if that's what I wanted to do, like, how much else am I going to miss out on in order to try and fit that into the budget, right? And so giving yourself an allowance. And one thing that's really big for me and my wife is date night. Making sure that we make time for one another to just date. But that doesn't have to be some big extravagant thing, right? It could be going to the park and reading a book together,
right?
And
having a picnic,
you
brought from home.
Exactly. So your regular expenses we all know about. I want to talk about some other sneaky expenses that can sometimes really hurt folks' budget. So one that I always like to mention is, if you have a vehicle, your annual vehicle registration.
Oh my gosh. Sneaks up on me every time.
You get the email like,
and I'm like, this year I was late. I got $12 because I forgot all of it. Marissa literally pointed it out to me. She's like, I think it's October. And I was like, nah.
No, there's no way. I just did that.
Did that. It's literally what I told her.
Oh my God. Yeah. So your vehicle registration, get that into your monthly budget, right? So if your vehicle registration is $120 a year, that's $10 a month in your budget for your vehicle registration, right? So that needs to be a monthly expense, so that when it's time to pay your registration, you have the money sitting in your checking account, and it hasn't been spent because you know that, well, that's part of my budget. And
HOA fees, I feel like that's like the same as the other ones, like because mine isn't really high, so I pay just once a year.
Yeah, but
I always forget that it's happening at the first of the year.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do that.
Yeah, some HOAs are quarterly, right? Like on the condo that I have, one of the HOAs is monthly. There's like two HOAs. One is monthly and one's quarterly. They're small amounts. They're very small amounts, but it's something that you have to remember and budget for. And so that's one of those sneaky expenses. Another really sneaky expense is your vehicle maintenance. So oil changes, tires, things like that, right? So if the way that you drive requires you to get a $30 oil change once every 3 months, and I don't even think you can get oil changes for $30 anymore.
65.
Yeah. So say it's a $60 oil change once every 3 months. Again, that's $20 a month in your budget for your auto care expenses.
Yeah. Taking notes, guys. This is good stuff.
What are some other ones that always end up coming to mind? So,
I feel like we talked about food, that's a big one. Let's see. Little stuff like Netflix and Hulu. I mean, those
streaming services,
those auto drafted charges from your
upgraded Pandora or Spotify
or subscription that you don't even use anymore that you forgot to cancel. Those are small things that I had started. I mean, I didn't even know how to cancel a subscription.
I know they don't make it easy on a lot of them.
I had to Google it, and it was like, oh, now I do that frequently.
Yeah,
because sometimes you don't even realize like a free app you're signing up for actually has some underlying or whatever.
Auto renew.
Right.
Yeah, like so when I was driving to and from work a lot, I love listening to music, but the type of music that I listen to, sometimes I can't listen to it before work, because then I come into work a little too amped up, and folks ain't ready for that. So I like to listen to books when I drive. And so I had the top tier Audible subscription because it gave me like a couple of free credits every month, and I would literally burn through books that much that it was like, okay, this $20 a month makes sense because one book is going to cost me $20, and I'm burning through 2 or 3 books as I drive to and from work every day. Now, when COVID hit, and now we're working from home, and I was like, well, I don't need that high of a Audible thing anymore. And I went down to the $7.99 subscription because I was like, well, I'm not burning through books that fast because I'm not driving as much, and I can listen to my music now because I don't have to worry about nobody, right? And so those little things like that. Now, there's you just brought up a really good point that I want to touch on. So I have T-Mobile for my phone service. We had Sprint, but Sprint got eaten up by T-Mobile, right? And so with Sprint, our Hulu account was paid for through our Sprint account. We got Hulu for free through Sprint. Now, as we're switching over, now T-Mobile gives you Netflix for free. So,
oh, because I have Verizon, what do I get for free through them?
Disney Plus, right?
Oh, I do get that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'm like, I know all the free things, but
I don't use that much. It's not fair. Okay.
But so now it's like, okay, well, that is going to be something that we get for free.
Sure.
Now, T-Mobile also has their whole suite of things. So you log into the account and you get all this like different free stuff. Now there's another, when you're looking at who's your cable provider, who is, if you have a Costco account or a Costco membership, if you have like T-Mobile just gave me McAfee. So for all of our devices, we'll be able to have free there's a sneaky bill right there. If you have computers and you use them often and you have to have your antivirus, that's something that you have to renew and buy every year. Yeah. And usually they're like, $40 to $80 a year, and that sneaks up on you. And if anybody who's ever had their antivirus go bad or go out, and then next thing you know, your computer's just acting all wacky, right? So that's something that you want to keep. Right. But it's one of those things that will sneak up on you. But what I'm trying to get at here is, look at your companies that you do business with, right? When I got my Google devices, and they gave me free YouTube subscriptions, right? Sometimes we get these things and we don't even realize that we have them, and it might be something that you're paying for that you don't have to be paying for, right? So reach out to different organizations that you do business with and see, do I get a discount, or do I get something necessarily maybe even free because I have a Dell computer? Dell has partnerships with different things. HP has partnerships with different things. Samsung has partnerships with different people, places, companies. And the beauty and the curse, right? A lot of these partnerships that give you discounts, that give you free items, the reason that they work for these companies to pay for these things is because most people don't use them. Right. So your bank, if you bank with any of the, bigger or smaller banks, credit unions, a lot of times if you go in there and you scroll down, you'll have like, oh, these offers, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a credit card, sometimes you have these different offers, or, hey, activate this, you get discounts. Capital One has where you can get discount codes on things that you're going to purchase. Make sure that you're looking for all of those different discounts and utilizing the services that you're already subscribed to, right, to get discounts on things that you also need or that you're also subscribed to. So that's one of those ways to save on those sneaky things. So give yourself an allowance. That's how you're going to limit the amount of excess spending that you're going to have. I am not a huge fan of cash unless you are really good at keeping receipts and reconciling your spending daily, weekly, monthly. Not monthly, scratch that, daily, weekly. You need to reconcile your expenses at least once a week. And what that means, I'll kind of click over to my tips, my money management pro tips. Reconciliation. Reconciling means you are validating that your spending is matching what your budget was, right? So on Sunday, that's when you go and you look and you say, okay, last week, I'm going to pull out my checking statement, or my, I'm going to pull up my bank account, and I'm going to look and say, okay, so this is what I spent. These are the categories that I spent it in last week. Does that match up with what I had budgeted and said that I had spent? Was there a surprise expense that, had to happen? What's the reality of my spending? Because it's very easy to take a piece of paper, or a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet or in mint.com, which we'll talk about shortly, or something like that. It's very easy to put all that together and then say, okay, this is my budget.
Yeah, I've done that. And then you don't do anything with it.
And then you don't do anything with it, right? So Sunday, when you're planning out your week, right? You're planning your meals for the week. You're planning out your calendar and your schedule for the week. Sit down and open your bank account. Open your bank account, people.
Scary thing sometimes,
but
you got to do it.
You have to do it. Look at the reality of your spending and do it often. And you'll find that the more often you do it, you will begin to Rick James less in the line for impulse buying and things like that, because you'll there's no more hiding, right?
Right.
You swipe your card, you spend the $10 or whatever, and you crumple the receipt up and you throw it away before you even leave the store. And now it never happened.
Right. No accountability.
No,
I don't want that receipt.
No.
Nope.
Right. I remember I used to always, I had a line that is just, it was funny to me, I guess, but someone would ask me, I would go and I'm just out, spending, making it rain in Walmart or whatever. And they're like, do you want your receipt? Oh no, I don't want any evidence of what I've just spent. Right. Like I have no intention of bringing this back and I don't want any evidence of it.
Right.
And next thing you know, you have this gadget shoved up in the closet in the corner that you used for a week. You didn't really need, but it was a cool flippy doodle, and I had to get that flippy doodle that day, right? So that's one pro tip. The next one is, and this one is, I guess, sometimes a little bit controversial, I've found, but I still believe it. There are no gender roles with money. If you're in a relationship and whoever's better with money, now everyone needs to get good with money. Everyone needs to grow in that area and begin to rise up to the level of money execution that they need. That's not, non-negotiable. It's no secret. But if your husband or wife or other significant other is just better with money than you, then let them set the budget, right? And then stick to it together. Because if you're in a partnership where you have similar, or what's the word I'm looking for? If you have goals that connect with one another, and you are both taking yourselves or your family on the same path, and one of you is better with money than the other, I don't care who it is.
Let them do it.
Let them do it. And humble yourself to stick to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how many people I speak with where one of the biggest challenges is the person who's not good with money, and I'm not going to say any genders. The person who's not good with money is the person who's setting all of the budget and managing the household's money, and the other person is not speaking up, or they're not switching those roles because, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, well, obviously that's not the way it's supposed to be because it's not working for you, right? So if that's not working for your family, then you have to adjust. So I firmly believe there are no gender roles with money. Everyone needs to get good with money, but in the meantime, the person who's better with it, let them take the lead.
Yeah, definitely.
The next one is disconnect. Disconnect your savings from your checking.
Yeah, that's something I need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
which is a hassle for, initially, because it requires you setting up
A new
a
account.
new account somewhere. But I mean, really, that's like, I've been just thinking recently, that's the only way
Mm-hmm.
to stop yourself from, like, I see that there and I'll be like, oh, well, I have that. No, like that shouldn't
It doesn't
be-
exist.
It doesn't exist.
Yep.
Doesn't it? And, I mean, like I said from the beginning of these podcasts, I'm still learning along the way. There's things that we're talking about today that I'm not doing or that I'm not doing well enough.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing to do is recognizing that you need to do something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I know it can be scary, but
It is. And you know what's funny? Once you start doing this, you'll begin to see, like, specifically talking about disconnecting your checking from your savings. Once you do this, you'll actually begin to be able to forget about whether, I don't care if it's $20 a month, $20 a week. I don't care what it is that's left over that is set for savings. Once you move that into an account that's not in your everyday checking account view, right? Because what most people do is they open their bank account on their phone now, right? You just open your bank account and you're like, oh, I have X dollars. Cool. And you close it. And that's the extent. Or wait, I only have X dollars. Oh, let me look at the spending. Oh, yep, I did spend that.
Yep.
Okay. And then you close it, right? Want to make sure there's no fraud going on. And then you realize, oh, it wasn't fraud. It was just me balling out.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start doing that, you literally do start to forget about it. And you realize, like, man, I really don't need all of these things that I think I need.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to see that account grow and you're like, wow, this is beautiful. I'm starting to feel some weight come off of my shoulders and really start to see the end result of the plan that I've set in place, right? So disconnecting your checking from your savings, not a paid advertisement, but Ally Financial has some really good online savings account options that are higher yield for your liquid savings, right? You should have at least 6 months of expenses in savings, in liquid savings, and disconnect that, because it's very easy, like you said, to just be like, oh, well, I can just transfer that over, and then now I can get the thing that I wanted.
Right.
The other thing is pay yourself back. If you give yourself a loan from your savings account, pay it back. Just like if you took a loan from your 401k.
Yeah.
They're now going to say, okay, well, instead of 15%, or let's say instead of 15% per paycheck, now we're going to take 17% per paycheck so that you can pay back what you borrowed. Same with your own budget. If you borrow $500 from yourself, if you borrow $30 from yourself, I don't care, and your amount that you're putting into savings is $20 or whatever, and your allowance is $20 a week. Okay, well, now my allowance is $17 a week, so that I can add and get back to where I was and pay myself back.
Right.
When you borrow money from yourself from savings, think of your savings account as your own personal bank. You can't just take money and from the bank and not pay them back. They're going to want it back. Your savings wants that money back because you need that. Future you needs that. Right. So paying yourself back is another one. Automate whenever possible. So I want to tell, I guess, a little story.
You mean auto pay or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I was, I was 21 years old. I will never forget this. I was 21 years old and living paycheck to paycheck. And my car note was like $310 a month or something like that, which honestly at that time was probably a little bit more than I should have been spending a month on a car. But so my car note was like $310 a month. And I had set myself up on auto pay for my car note and forgot because I didn't have it for forever. And I think I missed a payment. And then I was like, oh, that was, not good. So let me set myself up on auto pay. So my auto pay came out, and then I got a reminder on my calendar to pay my car note because I still had my calendar set up, and I paid my bill. So the auto pay came out and I paid my bill, and I didn't have money to be double paying my car note. I remember calling them and I was like, hey, I accidentally paid 2 months. I need that money back. I was really young. I thought maybe they're gonna be like, oh, it's okay, sweetie. Okay, we'll give you that payment back. Yes, they were absolutely like, thank you, and no.
I had that happen by mistake on a glitch.
Really?
And they definitely, I was like, I guess it was for my mortgage. And I was like, the website glitched. And I was like, I definitely don't have $4,000 to give.
Yeah.
And they did, but maybe back then or car note situation, that's not the same. And they're probably like,
it was Chase. They were not.
much for giving it out.
They were not having it. Thanks a lot, Chase Bank. Yeah, exactly. Even missing payments. I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
So if you automate, make sure that you remember that it's automated, basically what I'm saying. But automate your bills if you can. And that will also help you stick to your budget. Mm-hmm. If you set it up that, okay, I have this coming in, and on these days, these amounts are going to be automatically paid. So that's something that I'm a big fan of. And then the other thing that I'm a big fan of is if you do have good credit and you're good with credit cards, not all bills, but some bills will allow you to use a credit card to pay your bill. Listen closely, folks. I'm not advocating for paying your bills with credit cards and then racking up credit card bills. What I'm saying is, if you have a credit card that gives you great points or cash back, and say you have your Cox, your internet bill that you can set up on a credit card, it's already money that you're going to be spending. So you'll be able to pay that off in full every month.
Right.
So this is just an extra tip, right? If you have bills that you're already going to be paying and you can set them up to auto pay on a credit card, so then you're paying your credit card bill in full every month.
Is the key, in full.
In full.
Don't just think, oh, now it's on my credit card and
I got extra money.
Yeah.
Now I have extra money. No.
But this is a great way to also earn credit if you don't have any credit.
Yes. Yeah. So now you're taking advantage of the benefit of cash back or points or whatever benefit you have there. And it's going to help your credit score because it's showing that you're paying your credit card in full every month. And ideally, then you're also keeping your utilization down if you're not using your credit card for all kinds of other miscellaneous things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really, really great one that I love. And then I think one more, automate. Automate your budget as well. So I've been using mint.com for a long time. I can't even remember how long. And actually, you told me about Mint. It's probably a decade ago.
And I don't even utilize it as much as I should.
I remember you told me like, oh, there's this cool thing, mint.com. And I was like, oh, okay. And I've had the account ever since. And I've used Mint. And I love it because it allows you to set your budgets. And then when you're spending, because you can connect all of your cards and everything to it.
Right.
So it knows what you're spending. And when you spend, say I go to the gas station and I get gas, then they might be like, oh, hey, you've spent X amount of your gas budget that you have set out every month. Did you go, and I ask you like, did you go on a trip or any, things like that? But it gives you reminders of what you're spending. So it keeps it front of mind for you. And it's an app that you can have on your phone as well as a website. So I'm a huge fan of that.
Too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Keeps track of your credit score for free, without taking it's on your credit. And it'll tell, there's another thing, because my bank app does that. So your bank app might do that as well.
Yeah.
But I like Mint because, like Amanda said, you can pull everything. You pull everything, and I have my student loans. I just updated those in there. Yep. It takes your investments. It has my house. Like, it knows everything about me. It's kind of crazy. But what's cool is, like Amanda said, oh, you went over your gas budget this month. Maybe you didn't go on a trip and you just didn't budget enough for gas. Maybe, and it just kind of keys you into stuff that it's like, maybe you need to adjust that budget. Maybe you were a little bit unrealistic, and that's why you keep at the end of every month, dang, I'm $20 short on my whatever, or I got that overdraft fee this month because I wasn't expecting, because those are things like that it helps kind of key on too.
Oh yeah, I love it because it also, like you said, it can pull in everything, and then it will tell you what your net worth is.
That's pretty cool too.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
right?
Neat. Yeah.
To be able to see your net worth, and
it'll tell stuff like, oh, you got an ATM fee this week.
Where'd you use your card?
Right.
Because you don't want to pay money to get your own money.
Correct.
Does it make sense, right? Always remember, so keeping and closing in the expenses piece, always remember that your savings is an expense. Your monthly savings is an expense. That's something that should be budgeted and adhered to every month. And your investment is an expense. Now, research. Investing is something that takes research to understand where your money is going, what you're buying, and how it's going to perform over time. Do not invest money that you need today. All right. Don't invest money that you need, because there's always risk involved. But I can't stress enough that budgeting to invest is, for me, the ultimate. And how can you invest if you don't have a budget?
Sure.
Now, I talked earlier a little bit about P&L, profit and loss statement, financial statements, right? So run your life like a business. So here's an equation, right? Your income minus expenses, what's left over, that's your profit. Think of yourself as a business. Now, are you profitable or are you losing money? That's something that's really important to think about. The bottom line is, like, this isn't our grandparents' world, and inflation is real. It's not going away. And griping about, well, my grandparents were able to buy a house for $30,000, and that's the equivalent of $150,000 or whatever it comes out to. And today, wages haven't caught up with, like, all of that's true. It's true. And I'm not going to argue that. But we also have to live within reality,
right?
And we have to deal within the bounds of the truth that we live in at the time. Yes, call your senators, call your Congress people, vote, make sure that you're staying aware so that we can change these things as well. But in the meantime, like, we have to live with where we are.
Do something about it.
Right? And so yesterday's price is not today's price, and today's price is not tomorrow's price.
Right.
Everything gets more expensive over time. That's a given. So the only way to prosper in this world is to plan and execute. Mindset, planning, execution, right? So your budget is your personal profit and loss statement as an individual or a family. So ask yourself, when, for those of you out there who invest in the stock market or in businesses on the stock market, hopefully one of the things that you look at is this a profitable company? You wouldn't put your money, in most cases, especially not for long-term investments, you typically wouldn't put your money in unprofitable companies. Right. So why would you want to be an unprofitable company? You don't, right? And so these are some of the things that we're talking about. So your income minus your expenses, what's left over for savings and investment, that's your profit, right?
And I think it's just a matter of like executing that means come home, pick a day of the week. For me, it's the soonest day I have off after payday. That's what I do that day. I wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, I look at my budget. What bills do I need to get paid? Make sure I do that. I need to take it one step further, and be checking in with that more regular and make sure I'm not spending. And maybe you're somebody that needs to be every week right now while you first start off. That's what it looks like. I think people they're like, well, how do I do that? You take the time, you carve out that time. Once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is for you, to really look at it, and you'll start feeling better about it too. You'll be like, you're not as bad. I feel like most of us aren't as bad as we think we are with money. And it's really easy to, especially if you're, somebody that's in school, still getting into your career, you're not to that final point yet. So it's really easy to say, I don't have the money to save. I don't have the extra cash. I'm just barely getting by. And this is when you can figure all that out. You sit down, you look at it, you find out if you are or you aren't living above your means. Maybe you're just not timing things appropriately. But that's a really good point. Also, looking at when are bills coming out throughout the month. Do you have your mortgage and your car note due in the same week? Right. That's going to put a strain on your budget and your cash flow. And then when we feel stressed out, we're more likely to make decisions that are against our values and our beliefs and our ultimate needs. And then it creates more havoc, right? So it's like, okay, well, if my car note is coming out the same week as my mortgage, okay, maybe I need to shift that. Can I shift that to week 3 of the month, and then kind of just alleviate some cash flow bottlenecks that I have there? That's really, really great. And I love that you put out there, like, you just have to make it happen. You have to put, like, when you're first creating your first budget, you got to pull up your bank statements and you really got to look at, what am I spending? What am I spending on? Where's my money going? And just, where can I improve?
What
am I doing good at? Remind yourself of what you're doing good. It's not always a bad thing. It's not always this negative thing. Part of your budgeting that week could be like, wow, I did really great this week. I took my lunch to work every day this week, and I saved myself $30 for the week in food. You know, like, those are the gains. And where can I put that? Where in this am I going to save that, or am I going to invest that this month? Just different things like that.
And the other side of it is, once your money starts making money for you, it becomes addictive. It's like, oh wow, I can use that money to make more money. Okay. Like, yes. And now the future starts looking brighter. Now things that seemed really hard or out of reach start feeling and looking more and more in reach. So those are, we've talked a lot today about budgeting, and I kind of wanted to kind of make sure that, let's see. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the tools that are available. On the Forward Motion website, we have a budgeting spreadsheet that's downloadable. We also have budgeting categories, because sometimes we forget different things that are in the budget that we are spending money on. And so you always want to make sure that you get all of the different categories. So we have a sheet for that. And I want to stress also that there's a big value in manually budgeting first. I'm a huge fan of Mint, like I mentioned, mint.com. And there are others out there, but that's the one that I personally use. I really like it. But when you're first starting to budget, and this is kind of your, beginning stages of budgeting, I highly recommend doing it by hand. Get a piece of paper, a notebook, get all of your bank statements. If you can print them out, do that. Touch your money, touch your expenses, look at them, sit with them, feel it, right? Because then you're really going, like when you're writing down, right? We all know, we learned in school, when you write something down, when you say it out loud and when you read it, you remember it. It's impacted in you, and it's imprinted in you, and you remember it better. So I believe that there's just a huge value in manually doing your budget first before you start going into an online application. So that's a pro tip that I want to share out there. Your bank application, your bank site, it might have tools like budgeting tools as well. So if that's something that you would like to use, you can use your banking application there. I think I've shared a bunch of stories today. Sarah, did you have any, like, a funny budgeting story or anything that you wanted to share? Or?
Yeah, I think this is like just your first glimpse at, it could be many examples of many things. Budgeting, living outside of your means, making decisions you shouldn't make. So Amanda and it was myself, Amanda, our other sister, Andrea, and our really good friend, Katrina. We all decided, well, really our sister graduated from high school, moved out of the house. We all hated our parents for running. They were terrible. And we decided we were going to move in with Andrea, who got a 2-bedroom apartment across from MCC.
And it's a community college.
Yeah, and here in Arizona. And we decided we were going to make it work. And we 2-bedroomed it up, each of us 2 in a room. And we were living the life of what we thought we were.
Yeah.
Amanda and I were still in high school. Very fortunate. Yeah. Anyhow, Andrea and I, right, went to
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
We went to the laundromat one day to, do our laundry, and we walked in, and it was just, we didn't really quite know what was going on. It just didn't look right. And so we stood there for a minute, and there were just quarters everywhere, all over this laundromat, just like. And then we slowly started to realize, we're like, what's going on? And we realized every single one of the washer machines and dryers had been broken. Someone had broken into pulled them all out, and pulled all the quarters out. And, in the midst of things, quarters were flying everywhere. And here we are, broke college and high school.
Oh, man.
And we couldn't do our laundry now. So we kind of looked at each other and looked around, and we started picking up quarters. We were like, this is the best day ever. Like, I'm not sure what's happening, but we're going to take all these quarters that are on the ground.
Oh, man.
And we ran home back to our apartment, and we were so secretive. We ran into the room. We didn't really know what we were going to do with these quarters, but we just, I don't know.
And it couldn't have been more than like $10.
No, it was
quarters or something. Oh,
it was $40. And it ended up being, we casted $40 up, I want to say.
Right.
Maybe a little less, but I remember, I feel like 40, it was up there.
That was like make or break.
We were like rich, and we were like,
that was make or break. $40. That's a lot of money.
So our big decision of the day was, do we tell Amanda and Katrina what we've just come upon? Do we let them in on our new funds?
And I think it ended up being a trip to the dollar store.
Yeah, and it was like, or do we, like, for the sake of the cause, after much, we could have went on a shopping spree. We had a good amount of money. We could have told nobody. We could have went
$40 shopping spree
to, like, the mall. Who knows? But we decided to come clean. We let them know what happened. And we did. We went to the dollar store and we got household items that we needed.
Yep.
And so, okay, one, like, tip there, we shouldn't have been living outside of our means. Like, no, we shouldn't have been moved out. We had homes, and while nobody loves their situation when you're a teenager and you're living with your parents for whatever reason that may be, as long as your basic needs are being taken care of, you really should just live there until you have the
you don't have to. Yeah.
And then just, trying to be, I feel like that was a smart moment for us. We needed things.
It wasn't a smart moment. It was, hey, like, in that retrospect, I think it was stolen corpus.
I should have taken him to the office or something. But we were really excited about, like,
16, 17.
yeah, like,
Oh,
we
man.
didn't break the machines.
No.
We were like, oh, they're just
Gosh. Yeah.
collateral damage. But I feel like, we had a choice. We could have chosen to do with that money something really stupid or something we actually needed, which was we got all of our household needs.
We got a spatula.
We did. We got some cleaning products. We had a few things.
Oh man.
So just,
plates.
Funny. Yeah.
We some plates, like, because we had nothing.
We were, nothing. So
our parents didn't support the move.
not at all.
Oh,
In fact,
man.
I think they were waiting to watch it implode. And
yeah, they had our rooms ready for when we were there. Act right.
But just trying to, take those opportunities to think about what decisions you're making before you do is a huge part of budgeting, I think.
Because the world that we live in is sensory overload. It's funny. I always say, and I, not to pick on, any like Walmart or the grocery store or whatever, but you can have the best plan in your head and walk through those doors and it's like your whole brain goes blank and it's like, what was I here for? And it's set up that way purposefully, right? It's like shop-a-palooza, right? When you walk in, right? You've got all of the doorbusters or these things here and you forget, because the job of retail is to get you to spend money. Whatever retail it is, whether it's groceries or shopping clothes or going to Ross or going, wherever, impulse purchasing is a big part of how retail organizations make their money. And so being really intimately close to your budget and the plan that you set out for yourself is so super important. So hopefully you all have enjoyed our conversation today about budgeting. I've truly enjoyed it myself. You can find us Forward Motion on Facebook and Instagram at Forward Motion AZ, and you can find us here on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at Moving Forward One Family at a Time. And the podcast you can find on Google Podcasts, you can find on Amazon Music, as well as Spotify and many other podcast locations as well. We are a nonprofit organization, and so we do appreciate your donations to help us to continue to bring content to you and help others to move forward financially. And you can share donations at forwardmotionaz.org/donate. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.